enough to remember the old jingle for the Mounds Almond Joy candy bar commercial. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Mars Almond Joy got nuts, Mounds don't. Was it Mars? I don't remember. Anyway, you remember that? Well, I don't know. For some reason, as I set the video camera up to do this dogfight, it just popped into my head. Sometimes you feel like a pro, sometimes you don't. Pantech Matrix Pro, Matrix don't got Pro, or you know, something like that. I didn't quite have it worked out, and I just figured, I'll turn on the camera, maybe inspiration will strike me, which clearly it didn't. What's going on, everybody? I am not a candy bar ad copywriter. I am Noah from PhoneDog.com, and so I should leave the ads to somebody else who knows what they're doing and get to the phone review. In this case, it's a dogfight. Pantech's AT&T messaging phone dogfight extraordinaire. The Matrix and the Matrix Pro. And you know what? We bring it so hard at PhoneDog that we don't just have the boxes. We actually have the phones. Did I just say we bring it so hard that I have no street cred at all? I grew up in the suburbs. It's not just the boxes, we have the phones. The Matrix Pro, they are both Pantech phones on AT&T. They both have this crazy dual slider mechanism where you get you slide it up and you get a keyboard for dialing, and you slide it the long way and you get a QWERTY keyboard for typing. The big difference between these phones, the big difference between these two phones is that the Matrix rocks a standard messaging interface, the AT&T proprietary messaging interface, whereas the Matrix Pro is a full-on Windows Mobile 6.1 smartphone. Also, the Matrix Pro adds GPS functionality. Neither one has Wi-Fi, they both have 3G, and they have slightly different hardware designs. Which one's the better phone? Do you feel like a pro, or do you don't? Well, let's find out, dogfight style. Alright, so they're similar, they're different. The Matrix on the left, the Matrix Pro on the right, both Pantech, both AT&T. Very similar hardware design, they're both kind of follow-ups to the Duo, which came out last year, and that was kind of a follow-up to the Helio Ocean, which originally came out on Helio, which was an MVNO, ran on the Sprint network. Pantech built the phone. It was a Helio phone that debuted the dual slider format with the, you slide it one way and you get the dialing keypad, and you slide it the other way and you get the QWERTY board. And now Helio is actually now on Virgin Mobile, even though they still lease network space from Sprint, and they just came out with the Helio Ocean 2, which has the same sort of design. You can check it out in a different video, and blah, blah, blah. There's your little mini history of the cell phone industry. But basically, that's the lineage here, where you wind up with these two dual slider phones. The biggest difference between the two is the Matrix is a messaging phone. It runs a proprietary operating system, AT&T operating system, that's a straight up kind of messaging dumb phone operating system, whereas the Matrix Pro runs Windows Mobile 6.1, non-touchscreen, has kind of a couple tweaks to the OS here, but it's a smartphone operating system, so you can install, Windows Mobile apps and do all your business here on the phone. Otherwise, obviously, some hardware differences. The design, the Matrix Pro, the Matrix comes in a couple different colors. This is the blue one. Matrix Pro is gray, a little more of a business look to it, although not, super businessy. It's got kind of the more rounded corners, the kind of elongated oval shape a little bit. The keyboards are a little bit different. I definitely prefer the Matrix Pro's keyboard. You can see the Matrix Pro on the bottom. The keys are a little bit bigger, and I just like the action of the keys a little bit more. They're both fine. I just found there's a little more travel to the key. They're raised up a little bit more on the Matrix Pro. When I click them, it's a little more definitive. The Matrix, I mean, it's fine. I got used to it, but just not a super. Neither one of them would rate as my favorite keyboards ever. I just found the Matrix Pro more comfortable to use. Otherwise, very similar layout. They both have the the extra soft keys on the QWERTY, so you can do when you rotate the phone into either phone into get rid of that. When you slide the QWERTY open on both phones, the screen auto rotates. So there you go, and it turns, and then you have soft keys here on the QWERTY board that you can use, as opposed to when you're in the vertical orientation, you have soft keys here on the D-pad. Another thing, speaking of the D-pad, is I definitely also prefer the D-pad on the Matrix Pro. This layout on the Matrix I got used to. The actual D-pad's a little bit smaller, And, this kind of circular layout to the soft keys and the music key and the call hang up and back keys, it looks cool, but I just kind of found it a little bit easier to get around. I think because you've got these little, kind of angled, curved, rectangular buttons here that are smaller buttons. And yeah, I'm an old guy with big thumbs, so I like the nice big buttons, and I just found the Matrix Pro a little easier to use the buttons, and I like the fact that you had, on each side, you've got two buttons that are kind of flush mount, and then you've got one button that's, a separate button, so there's a little more tactile feedback for the thumbs. Just found it a little bit easier to use, a little more comfortable. Maybe personal preference, you might not care, but all in all, I think just the hardware design of the Pro is a little bit better. Both phones perform well. They both, voice quality was pretty good, battery life was good. They both use the Pantech proprietary charger accessory port, which I don't really like, but that's how it is. I'd love to see these go to standardized micro USB for charging and data, and 3.5mm headphone jack for audio. But these don't have it, and so what are you gonna do? They both have the volume rocker switch on the side. The Pro has a record button down there, and then on the other side, you've got the dedicated camera button, and then your accessory port jack on both phones. And then on the back, you've got your 2-megapixel camera. Like I said, the voice quality was fine. The speakerphone quality was, not the best in the world, but pretty good. Cameras actually took pretty decent pictures for cell phones. They both had good signal coverage. They're both 3G. Neither phone has Wi-Fi, which for the Matrix, not that big of a deal. For the Matrix Pro, being a Windows mobile phone, I kind of expected it to have Wi-Fi. I was disappointed when it didn't. Matrix Pro adds GPS, and that worked pretty well. For messaging, they both work fine, and I think, this is where I actually give a little bit of a nod to just the standard Matrix, because I think that most people using this, interested in this form factor, are either going to look for a higher-end Windows mobile phone if they want a smartphone, with all the latest goodies, a high-res display, a touchscreen, all that kind of stuff, or they just want a straight-up messaging phone. If they want a straight-up messaging phone, they don't need Windows Mobile, they don't need to deal with it, they don't need to pay the extra for the data plan, and that's where the simplicity of the Matrix, some people might say, oh, it's under-featured, it can't really do much, it's a dumb phone, whatever, but it does what it's supposed to do, which is, it does messaging, and the messaging interface works just fine. But the basic messaging, the screen, you can read it. It's not super high res, but it looks fine. The keyboard, like I said, I prefer the Matrix Pro, but this keyboard certainly works well enough. And then you can switch and you can use the numeric layout if you want, and you can do your texting, in T9 mode. Whereas on the Matrix Pro, you definitely have more options, but Windows Mobile 6.1 at this point getting old in the tooth, and everybody's looking towards Windows Mobile 6.5. And it's got a little bit more robust of a thing. There's definitely more of a niche market for this phone. Niche market for this phone. The media player, not the best in the world. Windows Mobile, it works well enough. You can get by with it. I just think there are more compelling choices for a full-on Windows Mobile smartphone. And again, the Matrix Pro might be cheaper out of the box than something like an HTC Touch Pro. But if you're paying, it's really that monthly data charge that adds up over time. And if you shop around, you can get pretty good deals now on, all the Windows mobile phones, the Blackberries, all that stuff. So it's, this is kind of, there's going to be a market for it. There's going to be the person who wants Windows Mobile, but wants something that looks a little less business-like and doesn't, either doesn't care or actively does not want a touchscreen. And there aren't that many options for that kind of person. And this phone works just fine as long as you can live without Wi-Fi. The 3G connectivity was good. Like I said, the voice quality was good. It's Windows Mobile, so you have get rid of the Internet Explorer and put Opera on there, or try out Skyfire if you want. And I like the keyboard a little bit better as well. Again, wish it had a 3.5mm headphone jack. Wish it had a USB port right on there instead of having to go with the Pantech proprietary data cable. It works fine. Not the zippiest smartphone around, but definitely not horrible in terms of performance. The screen isn't the highest res, but or the biggest, but it's certainly clear, bright, easy to read. So it's a nice kind of middle of the road option, kind of an alternative option to the rest of the Windows Mobile touchscreen phones out there. It's just I'm not sure how many people it'll appeal to, whereas, you know, with the Matrix, if you like the form factor, if you don't mind the bulk or you like the bulk and you like the dual sliding, it's well built and it's easy to use and, you know, it does what it's supposed to do. All right, so it's kind of hard for me to call a clear-cut winner in this dogfight, but I think in a recommendation to you, the consumer, and thinking about, well, who's actually going to be interested in one of these phones, I think I have to recommend and declare the winner of this dogfight, the Matrix. Again, it's a little tough for me. I think if the Matrix Pro was running not Windows Mobile, but just running the regular, you know, messaging operating system, and I wasn't playing, you didn't have to pay for the full data plan and everything, I think I'd go Matrix Pro because I like the hardware better, I like the look of the phone, and like I said, the QWERTY in the front navigation, I think are just better designed. But then I can't help but use this phone and think about the shortcomings and how if I'm going to run Windows Mobile, blah, 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 what I just said. So even though it's a little bit odd to say, I personally would probably choose to carry the Matrix Pro instead of the Matrix. But I'm saying the Matrix Pro is the winner of this dogfight because in this case, I think it suits the target audience a little bit better. That being said, if you're interested in these two phones, you like Pantech, you like the dual slider design, and you're not locked into AT&T, you might also want to consider the Helio Ocean. Did a couple videos on that, the new Ocean 2. Did a couple videos of that already. You can go check those out on PhoneDog. While you're there, play the OnePod Bandit. You might want a phone. The folks from Pantech, I believe, donated something, so thank you to the folks from Pantech for that. But at any rate, the Ocean, similar design with the dual sliding, with the keyboard, you know, the two keyboards and everything, but a few extra features, 3.5mm headphone jack, a little more, you know, in terms of the integrated messaging, multimedia features, that kind of stuff. A little more kind of consumer-friendly, kind of a merger between the consumer-friendly messaging interface and then kind of the more advanced features you would expect from a smartphone. Ocean 2, very cool device. Worth a go if you're game to, you know, go to a different carrier and hop onto an MVNO because it's Virgin Mobile now who does Helio. But, you know, like, just a little shout out to another Pantech phone. But between these two, I'm going to go Matrix as the winner of the dogfight. And there you go. This time I didn't hit the ringtone. This time I hit Instant Messenger. All right? So there you go. If you disagree, hit us up in the comments. Hit us up on the PhoneDog forums. If you own one of these two phones, let us know what you think. Because, you know, you guys know a lot more. I get to review all the different phones. But, you know, you get your one phone and you spend a lot of time with it. And so you know the ins and outs and the quirks probably a little better than I do. Hey, and don't forget, starting next Tuesday, March 31st, I'll be out in the desert, Las Vegas, Nevada, for CTIA Wireless, the US's biggest cell phone industry trade show. The show kicks off officially on April 1st. I'm getting in on March 31st because there's all kinds of meetings and pre-show events, press conferences, all kinds of stuff. So definitely stay tuned to PhoneDog. All next week, all the new stuff coming out of the show, whatever it is, I'll find it, I'll video it, I'll bring it to you, I'll write about it, I'll tweet about it, you know, whatever I can do to make it feel like you're there, I will do it. And looking forward to lots of new stuff. Who knows what, but I'm sure lots of new messaging phones because that stuff's pretty hot, and new smartphones, and who knows what else might be coming out of the desert. We'll find out next week, all right? So stay tuned. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I'm Noah from PhoneDog.com. Matrix Pro. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.